Welcome to another Subway's I.O. Short. I'm Rob, and today's topic is the IRT's Contract 1, Sections 11 and 12, which encompass the Manhattan Valley Viaduct approaches and structure. As always, hit that notification bell and subscribe for the latest videos and posts. Okay, let's get started. The Manhattan Valley Viaduct and the Manhattan Street Station were constructed as part of the IRT's West Side Line, now known as the Broadway 7th Avenue Line. While most of the original line was designed to be underground, the terrain of Manhattanville necessitated a viaduct between 122nd Street and 135th Streets. At the time, 125th Street in West Harlem was known as Manhattan Street. The original specifications for sections 11 and 12 required a standard steel double-track structure from 104th Street to 116th Street. Between 116th Street and 121st Street, the structure was to transition into a concrete arch double-track tunnel. North of 121st Street, the two tracks were to be constructed partially in an open cut. As the terrain dropped significantly, the northern section between 122nd and 125th Streets was to be built between retaining walls on a masonry embankment. All work in the section was to be conducted through open excavation. Engineers determined that digging a tunnel under Manhattan Street was technically feasible but would require a steep grade. Initially, the IRT's engineers replanned to build a standard elevated structure with steel columns supporting plate girder spans. Standard viaduct construction could not be used for the entire length of the valley since the supports would have necessitated a costly realignment of the angled intersection of Broadway and Manhattan Street. As a result, the plans were changed to a steel viaduct with a double-hinged arch. The elevated rail section, originally called the Manhattan Valley Viaduct, runs from 122nd to 135th Street. The name was changed to avoid confusion with a nearby viaduct over Riverside Drive. The Manhattan Valley Viaduct consists of three distinct types of structures. The masonry approaches at both ends, from 122nd Street to LaSalle Street on the south, and from 133rd Street to 135th Street on the north, are constructed with rough-faced granite piers and brick infill. A dressed stone molding runs along the tops of the piers, supporting a stone guardrail adorned with nameplates ornamented with gutty. These nameplates were presumably intended to bear the name Interborough Rapid Transit Company, but were never inscribed. The viaduct has a total length of 2,174 feet. Its most notable feature is a two-hinged arch with a span of just over 168 feet, which carries platforms shaded by canopies but without station buildings, as the station is on the ground between the surface railway tracks. Access to the platforms is provided by escalators. The viaduct features three lattice girder two-hinged ribs, 24.5 feet apart on centers, with the center line of each rib forming a parabola. Each half rib supports 6 spandrel posts carrying the roadway, with the posts seated directly over vertical web members of the rib. The chords of the ribs are 6 feet apart and of an H section, comprising 4 6x 6-inch angles and 6 15-inch flange and web plates for the center rib, with lighter sections for the outside ribs. The arch was erected without falsework. The viaduct spans on either approach to the arch range from 46 to 72 feet in length. All transverse girders are 31.33 feet long. The two outside longitudinal girders of deck spans are 72 inches deep, while the others are 36 inches deep. All three are 8-inch thick. Each end of the viaduct features a through span with 90-inch web longitudinal girders. Each track is designed for a dead load of 330 pounds per linear foot and a live load of 25,000 pounds per axle, with axle spacing of 5 feet and pairs of axles alternately 27 and/or 9 feet apart. The traction load is taken at 20% of the live load, and a wind pressure of 500 pounds per linear foot is assumed over the whole structure. The foundations for the viaduct were concrete capped with granite. The foundations for the arch itself were 3 parallel piers of concrete. These arch foundations were carried to a depth of 30 feet below the street surface. On April 24, 1921, the name of Manhattan Street was changed to West 125th Street. Consequently, the original West 125th Street in this area was renamed LaSalle Street. The station signs were updated to reflect each name change. At 55 feet, the Manhattan Street Station was one of the tallest when it opened in 1904, trailing only behind the 110th Street Station on the 9th Avenue line, which had opened a year earlier in 1903, and the 116th Street Station on the same line, which held the title of the tallest station in the elevated network from 1879 to 1903. Manhattan Street on the new subway, along with 34th Street on the 2nd Avenue line, claimed the 3rd and 4th spots respectively. 92nd Street on 2nd along with Sand Street Upper in Brooklyn and 177th Tremont in the Bronx rounded out the top positions in 1904. Notably, 29 years later, the IND's Smith Street station would take the top spot. Did you know there was a proposed connection known as the Fort Lee Connection, which was planned to be a 2-track steel elevated line? It was to begin at the portal at West 122nd Street in Section 12, with 2 tracks running above Broadway north to the current West 125th Street. From there, 1 track would turn west and cross under the viaduct, with both tracks continuing west on the present West 125th Street to the Fort Lee Ferry on the Hudson River. The connection was designed to have 1 track on each side of the viaduct. Although extensive plans were completed and the route was authorized in 1903, obviously this was never built. Another interesting point is at the approach at 134th Street and Broadway, where a 2-track steel I-beam structure, approximately 200 feet long, was initially completed. The original plans for this section called for a 2-track line. After completing this work, a decision was made to widen the road to accommodate 3 tracks. The retaining walls were moved laterally using jacks, shifting them 6.25 feet on each side, thereby widening the roadbed by 12.5 feet without breaking either wall. The method used to widen the steel I-beam portion of the subway was equally novel. The west wall was moved by jacks to align with the new position of the west retaining wall. The remaining structure was then shifted 6.25 feet to the east using jacks. A new roof of the usual type was then added over the additional 12.5 feet of opening, extending into 137th Street as a 3-track line instead of the originally planned 2-track line. The original station house directly below the tracks was replaced with a new mezzanine and 3 escalators in 1931. Initially, the station platform was 350 feet long, with an extension of roughly 100 feet added to the northbound platform in 1910. Both platforms were extended to accommodate 10-car trains in 1948. Today, 120 years later, the station and its viaduct setup stand as a testament to the challenges and ingenuity that shaped our transit system. If you enjoy our content and would like to see more, please consider subscribing, as it helps us create more content. We've been receiving many questions about our remix series, but no worries. Our next release will be Volume 3, Part 1 of the A-Line. We experienced some signal verifications that caused the delay, but it's on its way. That's all for now. I'm Rob. Until next time.